welcome to the second week of doing our plaster cast drawing. This week we are going to focus on finishing up the drawing that we started last week. Now last week we just roughed in and sort of blocked in the basic value shapes. This week we're going to push it to the finish, and I will show you how I do that. Now there won't be a whole lot of talking going on in this video simply because most of it is just tiny little detail work, but I will do a little bit of voiceover throughout the video so that you will have some guidance, but a lot of it is just observation. All right, that's it. So let's jump in. All right, well, last week when we finished up our initial blocking in of the plaster cast, we ended up with just some larger areas of the dark value masses. And what I want to do here is with that layer, first layer down, I'm taking my blending stump and just gently going over those, kind of working the charcoal into the tooth of the paper. And I'm doing that with this blending stump. Just, of course, this is fast forwarded, so I'm not that fast. You'll find that when you are working this way that sometimes the charcoal dust falls off, so you have to work in layers. So I'm making this be the first layer, knowing that I'm going to have to put another layer of more charcoal over it just to get the value, the right value, the right shade. I refer to the different layers of value as skins, and that's because you do build up the layers of the value almost as though they are layers of skin on top of skin. This is a paintbrush I'm using as a maul stick. If you have a dowel or anything like that, that would work just as well too. But it's good to rest your hand on something, that way you're not right up onto the paper. And I sharpen my charcoal into a really sharp point to try to get in there and get the fine tooth of the paper filled. And one thing that is a little bit difficult to see on the camera here is off to the side of my drawing, on the edge of the extra paper, I take my blending stump and I'll just sort of scrape it on the edge of the paper, just because there gets to be a buildup of charcoal dust on the tip of the blending stump. So I will go off to the side and just sort of scrape it real quick. And that's what I'm doing over there. It helps to keep that buildup off it a little bit more. And so the purpose of doing these plaster casts is so that you learn how to get in there and really observe the subtle nuances of value shifts, and where light meets the shadow. You can get in there and just do those subtle variations where it shifts from a little bit harder, a little bit softer, where things turn, and which is really ultimately the real reason behind doing plaster casts, that it's all about a study in observing values. And just like in other areas where you have on the plaster cast here very sharp, clean areas where the edges are sharp, I also want you to really pay close attention to where edges are lost. So where the eyelid comes and curls around, and then the bridge of the eye above it there, right above that, is the same value, then I want to just soften those two areas and really see them unite. And one thing I really want you to remember is that the kneaded eraser is every bit as much of a tool as the charcoal, because there are times you have to lift out and get that white of the paper, because your shines and your white of the paper is the brightest, lightest spot on your paper. So you might have an area that looks really lit, but that's really not your brightest white. So make sure that where you have a shine on your plaster cast, that is your brightest white of the paper. Everything else is going to have a very thin layer of charcoal skin on it to give it the illusion of being shiny. That way the shine will really stand out. So your kneaded eraser is essential to really pulling out not just the shines, but in areas where you may have to lighten a value a little bit if you got it too heavy. It's very important to keep on hand. In this passage here, you can see I went in a little bit closer and just started, you can see all over the drawing, some areas where I corrected a few shapes that I really wanted to have a little bit more accurate than what I had originally laid down. So I just very loosely went in and laid out the drawing of those areas. So you can see up above this passage where the eyebrow, there's some quick sketches up there, some defining of the shape. And so then right now, as I'm nearing the end of this, I'm just working my way over the whole passage, cleaning up values and shapes. And of course, as you know, this video has been fast forwarded. The whole drawing took about 10 hours to do, just because there's so much filling in and value observation and so forth. So do allow yourself plenty of time to work on this and just really refine those shapes and values. And so as I finish up the drawing, it's more just at this point the process of going through and just pinpointing some fine-tooth little details. When the drawing is finished, you want to take it right away to an open area and hold a can of workable fixative way back from it, and you spray it very loosely over the top of it, going back and forth. Then you go back to your easel and carefully peel the tape off after that spray has dried, a few minutes or so. And very carefully peeling off the artist tape will reveal your clean edges. And you are finished, ready for framing. All right, well, that wraps up this video for this week. I hope you enjoyed the plaster cast drawing, and I encourage you to just continue practicing these. It is a number game. The more you do, the better you get at them. So if you have another eye, or you want to lay this down or adjust your lighting, the whole thing completely changes, so you can try it in different ways. All right, next week we are going to be doing a live model, so find a friend and see if they'll sit for you. Okay.